There's a special day coming up.
Valentine's Day, the anniversary of our first date.
And the day I found out who his true love is and how much he loves chocolate.
So we have a special treat for you. We're going to bake a cake out of one of my favorite cookbooks, The Way to Cook by Julia Child.
His true love.
This is called the Queen of Sheba, and it's a rich, moist chocolate cake in the French style that melts in your mouth and is full of wonderfulness.
It's delicious.
This is one of my specialties, so today Tina will be my lovely assistant. There are quite a few steps in the recipe, but if you just follow the directions, it'll come out great even the first time you try it. We've preheated the oven and we'll melt the chocolate. So in this pan I have 3 ounces of sweet baking chocolate and 1 ounce of unsweetened chocolate. Use a baking chocolate. Don't try chocolate chips, they just won't melt correctly.
These even say bakers right on them.
Yes, they do.
How handy is that?
To thin and flavor the chocolate a little bit, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of strong coffee. This is espresso.
Yum.
Could also use rum.
That's not coffee. Thank you.
Add a tight-fitting lid, and you place that in a pan of just simmering water. Turn off the heat and remove the pan from the heat. Now in a few minutes when we come back to it, that chocolate should all be smooth and melted.
We have
1/3 cup of blanched almonds with 2 tablespoons of sugar. We're just going to pulverize those in a food processor.
Sounds good to me.
And just pulse it on and off until they're finally pulverized.
Very noisy. All right, there we go.
That looks great. Then the last preliminary is to separate 3 eggs. I always separate one at a time into a little bowl, and then if I mess one up, I haven't contaminated whatever else is done. So we'll start with the egg yolks and butter and sugar. You don't have to use 2 mixers, but we have 2, so it makes it a little faster.
Are we allowed to peek at the chocolate?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to take the camera over.
While she does that, I'm just going to cream this butter with the hand mixer.
Looking good.
This old mixer, I think my mother found at a garage sale and gave to me, and it served many years. So once this is just softened a little bit, I'm going to add 1/2 cup of sugar and beat it for 1 minute, and then beat in the egg yolks. Will you pour the egg yolks in, please? Once they get foamy, we add a 1/4 teaspoon cream of tartar and then beat them until they make soft peaks. And then at that point, add 2 tablespoons of sugar and continue whipping, and they'll whip up into stiff, shiny peaks. And you can see that when the peak will stand up on its own.
That's good enough?
Yep.
Might be. I have a question. What happens if somebody doesn't drink coffee or like coffee?
They should still do it.
What do we do then?
You could use rum to flavor the chocolate. And it won't, the chocolate does not end up tasting like coffee. The coffee just kind of gives some, I don't know, some background and some stronger hints of flavor to the batter.
Ah.
Will you please fold the chocolate, the melted chocolate, into the butter and egg yolks?
Oh, I get to do the fun part.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see how it looks? Looks like slumpy.
That's right.
Should I
But
stir
it's
it
all
first?
smooth. Just stir it together and stir that right into the eggs and sugar. You can tell we're big fans of rubber spatulas in this household.
Yeah, we like to get every little bit. Oh, you know what? Some of this is sticking to the bottom, so I think maybe we can stick it back in that hot water.
Well, it could be that it got a little bit too warm.
I was thinking maybe it cooled off a little bit.
Or it could be that that has to be licked out later. So blend that together. Then we're going to add those pulverized almonds and a 1/4 teaspoon, a little bit generous there, of almond extract.
Oh, it smells so good. I have never helped him make one of these before in all these years. So this is kind of, I feel like I'm let into a special club or something.
All right, now add the pulverized almonds.
Okay.
Now, if you'll take that same spatula and put about 1/3 of the egg whites on there.
Why only 1/3?
Well, that is just to lighten it. The cake gets its lightness from the egg whites, so we're just going to thin this out, and then the rest of the egg whites will fold in very gently so that we don't deflate them.
I've never thought of the Queen of Sheba cake as a light cake.
You know, light is relative.
More like a giant truffle.
So now we'll alternate. I have here 1/2 cup of cake flour. Use cake flour, don't use all-purpose. The texture won't come out right.
What's the difference?
It's more fine and it's much lower gluten.
Oh.
And I have it in a sifter, so I'll just sift a little bit on. If you don't have a sifter, you can use a sieve and shake it on. And a dollop of egg whites.
Can you tell what gluten does?
And then we'll alternate those. Gluten is the protein in wheat flour that holds things together. For something like bread, you want gluten because that holds the starch particles together and traps the carbon dioxide as it rises. For something like biscuits or a cake, you want less gluten so that it's kind of a crumbly texture.
Me too.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. We'll trade places. Another dollop of
I was going to do it while you kept mixing.
and just fold gently. If I scoot this over to you.
Hey, there we go.
Uniform.
Oh, it looks like cake batter to me now.
Yep, looks like cake batter. Now I have an 8-inch round pan, which I have floured, or buttered and floured. I like to put a piece of parchment in the bottom, just to make sure that it'll unmold easily. We'll add the batter.
Yum.
And then you kind of
Jiggle it.
jiggle it a little, and what the instructions say is to run it up to the edge all the way around. I don't know why.
I would
Just
probably
makes sense
dump
to
it
do.
out if I tried doing that.
Okay. Then that's going to go into the preheated oven, 325 degrees for about 25 minutes. It doesn't get baked until it's dry all the way in the middle. You'll test it with a toothpick, and about halfway between the edge and the center, your toothpick should come out clean. But the center is still going to be moist and may jiggle a little bit when it comes out of the oven. And that's part of the magic, is it's a very moist, luscious cake. So while the cake is baking, I'm going to make the chocolate leaf decorations. And that starts simply by, again, melting some chocolate. This time it's going to be 2 ounces of sweet chocolate, semi-sweet or bittersweet, and 1 ounce of unsweetened. Melted it the same way, just by setting this pan with the chocolate into a pan of hot water. The advantage of that method is there's less of a chance that you'll overheat the chocolate and break it or make it grainy. So once that's melted and smooth, then mix them together. I'm just going to pour it out onto a piece of wax paper right on the countertop here. And then spread that out roughly in a circle, but it doesn't have to be circular. And you want to get it nice and thin, about a 1/16 of an inch, which means about as thinly as you can spread it. And we'll break it up into random shapes after it's cooled. You can also use a cookie cutter if you want to cut out hearts and flowers or other shapes like that.
I think it looks really cool when you break it up. It's neat how you handle it.
And this can be made in advance, just stored in the refrigerator or another cool place where... Okay, so that'll go into the fridge to harden.
How long does that take?
Till it's hardened. Probably 10 minutes or so. And certainly you can do it in advance and keep it for a couple of days. There it is, and you'll see what we do with these a little bit later. Okay, it's time to check the cake.
Ooh, it looks good.
You can see that it's puffed up to the top of the pan, but it's still, if you move it gently, it's still a little bit soft in the middle. We're gonna just check right here. That toothpick is clean.
Nice.
I'm gonna get it right out.
Do you want to poke it in the middle too?
No.
Just trust.
Yeah, it will be wet in there. The toothpick would not come out clean from the middle, and that's the way it's supposed to be. It will continue, it will finish baking just from the residual heat while it cools down, and it will be moist, especially in the center. The cake is cool and ready to frost now. I actually took it out of the pan last night and let it cool, but I stuck it back in the pan so I can show you how to get it out. It's nothing to be afraid of. I just use a little plastic knife and go around the edge. A plastic knife works well because it's thin and flexible, and you won't scratch any coating that's on the pan. And then I like to cut a circle of cardboard, just the right size to fit in there, and cover it with wax paper. You can use cake cardboards that you buy at the store also. Simply go like that. Be a little bit patient.
Fingers.
Sometimes it'll stick, but just give it a few seconds and you can lift the pan right off. And there it is. To frost it, I just set it on top of a bowl because I don't have a turntable. And one advantage is you get these little crumbs that fall off the edges, and those are a great little treat to taste and make sure it's good. You can serve it just like this, maybe with a dusting of powdered sugar. It will taste wonderful, but honestly, it's not that impressive looking. So we're going to give it the full dress treatment. To do that with soft chocolate icing and chocolate leaves on top, you start, once again like we did yesterday, by melting some chocolate. I already have that done. In this case, for the soft chocolate icing, it's 2 ounces of sweet chocolate, bittersweet or semi-sweet, and 1 ounce of unsweetened. And again, 1.5 tablespoons of strong coffee, or you could use rum. Now that's all beautiful, smooth, and melted. I'm going to mix it together using our favorite kitchen utensil, the rubber spatula.
There you go. Oh, that looks good.
And I'll add just a pinch of salt. And now I'm going to beat into that 6 tablespoons of melted butter. I'm sorry, not melted. Of room temperature unsalted butter. This takes just a little bit of time. You do it 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time. This will thin it down to spreadable consistency and cool it just a little bit as the butter melts.
What happens if you don't have unsalted butter? What do you do then?
You could use salted butter, and I've done that, and it works fine, but...
You reduce the amount of salt that you put in?
Right, I would not put in a pinch of salt.
Okay. Oh, that looks so good. It's funny, the cake to me looks kind of like brownies, without all the dressing on it.
Again, this is something to do when you can enjoy the process and are not in a hurry. If it seems to be getting too stiff, you could set it back in the warm water. But what happens here is it's cooling down and the chocolate is getting a little firmer, but you're also adding all this butter, which is melting and making it thinner. You can see it's getting softer and glistening, and it needs to actually cool quite a bit so that it will be firm enough to spread.
What if you're impatient like me? I was thinking he should put that on the burner and just warm it up a little.
Yeah, you'll be unhappy with the result.
Then I'd be impatient and unhappy. That's not a good combo.
No. You can bake the cake, you know, a couple days in advance and just store it in the refrigerator. You can even wrap it up and freeze it for a while. But you'll want to put the icing on when you're ready to serve it. Don't freeze it with the icing on.
Why not?
Yeah, it would. Frozen chocolate usually doesn't look so pretty.
Oh.
All right, I think we're ready. There might be just a little bit of butter down in there, but that'll mix in as we spread it onto the cake. It's kind of fun to stir it too. It feels nice. It feels very luxurious. Luxurious. Okay, so I'm just going to put most of that
Oh, it's like he's putting cake lotion on.
right on top. The important thing here is to get the edges covered. We're going to put those leaves on the top of the cake.
What leaves? Oh, the chocolate, what you made last night.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So it can, the frosting can be a little bit thin on the top if necessary. Or if there are any imperfections, don't worry about it.
Hey Phil, I got you a present.
Oh, it's perfect. And in Valentine's Day colors.
Ooh, and it's the perfect size.
Mm-hmm.
Yay!
Uh-oh. Now while the frosting's still soft, we're going to put on the chocolate leaf decorations.
Getting close to the end here.
The chocolate is hardened and stayed in the fridge overnight.
Hey, and it's curly.
Yep. As it cooled, it contracted a little bit. It actually came free of the wax paper, and it cracked in the middle, and that doesn't matter one bit. We're going to break it up.
Can I help?
Yes. Now, we won't touch the chocolate with our fingers, because that would leave fingerprints on it and make it look messy. So I'll just use some spatulas or other instruments that you have. Simply break it, kind of randomly, although I like them to be long pieces like that.
Set that big piece on there. That'd be pretty funny.
And then the back side is very smooth.
And shiny.
Just arrange it on the cake. And these can be trimmed off later.
Alright, so just take...
Yep, we're just going to arrange it spirally or overlapping.
Do it again.
Okay, that one's kind of a clumsy piece. I'll flip that one over.
Okay, gotcha. It's like a big shard.
Mm-hmm. Break some more there. You can grab the wax paper sometimes too to break it. Come this side. Perfect. Yeah. And that's okay because we're covering up the frosting. There's always the opportunity to
see. There's a lot of
more
artisticness involved in this.
Like that. The chocolate will soften and flatten onto there. If a little frosting shows through, that's okay.
It's kind of disturbing how uneven it is everywhere. But I happen to know that it comes out just perfect.
Mm-hmm. And if your chocolate leaves soften to where they're not breaking nicely, you can just stick it back in the fridge for a little bit. We'll lift that one up.
Remind us what's in this,
Right here.
in the leaf stuff.
Oops. So it is just melted chocolate. 2 ounces of sweetened chocolate and 1 ounce of unsweetened. And in this case, there was no
Look like a t-shirt.
liquid put in.
So it's just the chocolate.
Yep, just the chocolate.
Okay.
Melted and
I feel like
cooled.
I should help in some way. Can I do that one?
Mm-hmm.
Where should I put it?
I'm going to tuck it underneath this one. So
Okay.
you need to grab with.
Hmm?
Perfect.
Like that.
Perfect. And they can scoot around a little bit.
I want to put this one on over here.
Okay.
That was fun. You always do this with such care.
Yes, this was a learning process for me because I'm a very symmetrical, even sort of person. So to decorate something in a bit more random and rustic fashion was different. Ah. And you can see that there's some leftover.
What will we ever do with that?
I don't know. Then you can just sort of push them down so they adhere into the icing.
Wow.
And break it
I've
off.
never thought of cutting a cake with a pair of scissors. Want me to turn it?
Yes, please. Again, I'm not trying to get it perfectly even. Just get rid of that overlap. The last little touch is to dust some cocoa powder on top. You could use powdered sugar, but we like the kind of brown on black better. And you should do this right before presentation. If you do this a day in advance, the cocoa powder is going to pick up moisture and darken, and you won't have as nice of a color difference.
Could you just put more on there?
Yep. So I just put a little bit in a sieve.
So delicate.
You could also stencil it on if you wanted to. So there it is. The Queen of Sheba.